Many people believe that the social contract is broken in our country for many reasons and in many different ways. People really feel that the government doesn't work for them. And we're supposed to have a government that is by and for the people, but we do not. And so a solution is a new contract, a new constitution. And it's important to note also that for so many of us, that social contract was never even there, because at the time our Constitution was written, people were considered property. And this is supposed to be a document that guarantees our rights and builds our structure of government. And so if we want the government to work for everybody, perhaps it's time for a new constitution. And we've covered this on before. There are some partisan right-wing efforts to call a constitutional convention, but instead we do need a document that would include everybody's input and represent everyone in the country. That's what we need to focus on. And that's why here today I'm joined with Ronnie Kellogg, who's an organizer with Wolfpack. Thanks for coming on, Ronnie. We're really excited to get into this. So let's just start with you introducing your work with Wolfpack. Introduce yourself for those of us out there who might not be aware of it yet.
Okay, thank you so much for having me. My name is Ronnie Kellogg, and I am a state leader in Nebraska with Wolfpack. And I have been in the Wolfpack since 2018. I have been organizing as much as possible, actually mobilizing in Nebraska for quite some time. I was part of a committee hearing in 2019, and I'm also helping currently with the serious restructuring that we're doing. Specifically, I am part of the team right now that is attempting to implement structure-based organizing into our actual strategy. I'm helping with introducing training right now, or developing the training right now, and I think we're pretty much close to it. But I was born in Omaha, and I was raised in a single parent household. And, my mother, she tried her best, of course, as we all know, wages have been stagnant forever. So my mom had to take like a bunch of jobs to make ends meet. And, and she also had to kind of take risks with childcare. She put us in families, childcare where people, were also working. So basically it was kids trying to look after kids. I ended up getting sexually abused in the daycare I was in. And that kind of shows you just how unfortunate that our government doesn't really help us, because if they did, my mom wouldn't have had to go through that, and she wouldn't have had to take such shortcuts, and I wouldn't have had to suffer so much. So I'm in this fight because I realize that it's my responsibility to get in it and try to make sure there's a better future for other people. So.
Thank you for sharing that, Ronnie. What do you hear on the ground when you talk to people about this work? I'm sure people connect to your story, for many different reasons. People really see that the government isn't working for them. And I'm sure when you share your story, people can see themselves in it. But do people think this is a crazy idea to rewrite the Constitution, call a constitutional convention? Are you finding people are relatively on board? What are you hearing on the ground?
Well, the first thing I want to say is that, we're desperately trying to get a convention that is limited. We're trying to propose one amendment. I think that people are genuinely afraid that we are trying to take the entire Constitution and rewrite it. That is one thing that people are afraid that we're trying to do. That isn't what we're trying to do. We're actually trying to amend it so that we can get rid of this horrible influence of money in politics. In fact, our current statement is to empower a mass movement to amend the U.S. Constitution, one that shatters the corrupting influence of money and restores a democratic republic that represents us all, right? So that's what we're all about. And it's true, when I talk to people, I have, friends that, I talk to this stuff about, and they are really scared. Like, they believe wholeheartedly that there is going to be some horrible issue that happens. They're so afraid. The most important one is the runaway convention idea. And I know our legal counsel, the legal counsel for Wolfpack here, Sam Fieldman, gave an interview. It's going to be linked in the show notes if I'm not mistaken. But he talks about why that's just not the case. Every scholar that's been that has any kind of expertise in this particular subject, if it's done in peer review, or even some institution like the Department of Justice, the American Bar Association, or the Congressional Research Service, they all realize that there's no way to do that. You're not going to get an amendment that isn't popular into the Constitution. That doesn't have amazing popular support because of how distributed the responsibilities are when it comes to this particular. When it comes to doing an Article 5 convention, Congress, the courts, they all have a role to play, and the delegates, the states, it's big, fat, giant checks and balances, and because of that, the chances of anything crazy happening are incredibly. It's just not going to happen. But I talk to people like that, and they're really, really scared. And I definitely remember during the committee hearings, you can hear some of the fear in people's voices. So it's unfortunate that the people who are against the Article 5 tactic have done such a good job, and we're just going to desperately try to fight back to make sure that this is the power. You're going to be giving up all your power, if you don't take advantage of this way of changing your life. Even, that's what this is going to do.
Yeah, a lot of what the media has covered has been really, this sensational idea that the far right in America is going to, coup the government through retaking the Constitution, rewriting the Constitution. There's a lot of talk about how much control they have over state legislators, having many more state Congress people be Republicans and represent less people than the few state legislators that are Democrats and independents. And so that's cause for concern for a lot of people, but it's an important distinction that the work y'all are doing is to amend the Constitution. You're not pushing for a convention where it's up for grabs to totally rewrite the Constitution. And it's really an amazing idea because we've been waiting around for Congress to take action to amend the Constitution for different ways for quite some time and for many reasons, and they haven't done much. So really what you all are saying is actually, we've got to put this power back in the hands of the people and do what's in our control to change that. Can you tell us a little bit about what the organizing looks like, what those conversations look like, and what the calls to action are?
All right. So Wolfpack has been going through a serious restructuring. And so there has been a lot of training being done on how to actually do this kind of stuff. In fact, I think it was May 10th of this year, myself, and a bunch of other volunteers actually attended the Organizing for Power training that was put on. And we learned the kinds of tactics that would be necessary for us to actually empower a huge mass movement. Remember, that's part of our vision statement here. So we learned how to do that. And so part of what we're going to be doing going forward is doing a lot of coalition building with other organizations. We're going to be going out and finding the people who naturally have leadership ability in different structures. Could be workplaces, could be, veteran organizations, wherever we think will help us. And we're going to go find the people in there that have natural leadership ability, and then we're going to talk to them and get them on board with something relatively simple at first. It's probably going to be, maybe, becoming a dues paying member, doing something like that. We're still working out all these details. But we are doing all we can to learn how to do all this stuff. We're getting so far with it that we're already darn near done with actually having our own training done on this particular issue. There are states that have already started doing some coalition building. Unfortunately, I don't remember those right now, but yeah, we are getting ready to ramp stuff up. We're already about to start testing our training, and pretty soon we're going to actually start training people to go out and do this work. So that's really all I can say right now.
That's really awesome. You all are working on an unprecedented project in many ways. And people might be on board. Yes, we need a real democracy. We've got to change this facet of how our government works. But it's really important you're doing a power training, because people might agree with that, but not feel like they have the power to change it. And it's important to communicate that to people and train them up to build power. It's also another problem that organizational structures are diffuse. They're geographically in different places. They do different work. Not everyone's communicating. So coalition building is also really important. So once you have the coalition and you have folks trained up, is the theory of change to put pressure on state legislators or U.S. Congress people to push this amendment?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that for us, we are definitely going to be looking at the states. We want to amend the Constitution, and we definitely are, I think most of us believe that we aren't probably going to get Congress to do anything unless we get a heck of a lot of movement already around the states. In fact, that's kind of how it's been done historically anyway. And most of the time when Congress has proposed an amendment, it's because there has been an amazing amount of pressure coming from the states in the first place. And so that's why there's never been an actual convention, because every time we get close, Congress, gets a little, they actually start doing start proposing it themselves. So that's probably what's going to happen. But we think that when we get enough momentum on the state side of things, that maybe this time it will happen exactly the same way it's happened before, where Congress will actually propose something. So we're going to go with the states first, and then we're going to see what happens from there. So we're going to pressure the states.
That makes sense. Power concedes nothing without a demand. That's why we've got to organize and put pressure on them. Mm-hmm. I want to also say that you mentioned a little bit earlier, there is an interview with Sam, who is a lawyer that works with Wolfpack, who's very familiar with the legal fight that this will involve, a legal fight that's already underway. And he covered also how the media has kind of been inaccurately covering the fight for the Constitutional Convention and what Wolfpack is doing to amend the Constitution. That's linked in the bio of this interview. I want to turn and ask about the other work you're doing at Wolfpack, but is there anything else you want to say about the work to push this amendment?
The only thing I'll say, though, it really is just kind of urge people to take responsibility for this themselves, right? Because if you can think about any issue that you have at the moment with our government, it's almost certain to have something to do with the corrupting influence of money in politics. Like you can't win on this issue. You can't get it done simply because of that. And it's very important that, anyone who does take responsibility for this fight realize that togetherness is the only way we're going to do this. It's the only way you're going to get this done. It's the only way you're going to win on this. And there's already several people that are fighting this as well. So if you take responsibility for it as well and you join up, then you'll already have a whole lot of people on your side. So if you're willing to go to wolf-pack.com/go or wolf-pack.com/volunteer and decide how you're going to fight back, and you're going to hear, like I mentioned before, you're going to hear a bunch of stuff about the Article 5 Convention It's going to be scary, but no peer-reviewed scholar or institution that's done any work on this issue thinks that there's going to be a problem. They all agree that everything's safe. So, make a plan, set yourself an if-then statement or something. Like, if I get the chance to do this, then I'll go to one of those websites, wolf-pack.com/go or wolf-pack.com/volunteer, and I'll take responsibility for this fight too. And we'll all do this together. You're not alone, and we all can win this. You just have to stand up and do it.
Thank you so much for coming on, Ronnie. We're going to put those links for those of you who are interested in joining Wolfpack. I encourage you to do so. They're doing really important work. We'll put those in the description of this video. Thanks so much for coming on, Ronnie, and fighting the good fight.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure. Thanks a lot.